The city of Chicago is known to travelers for its diverse cuisine, culture, and communities. But those of us who call it home know there's a whole world outside the city limits. With nearly 10 million residents across 8 counties, the country's third largest metro area is full of great places to live, eat, work, and play. As a real estate agent serving the suburbs, I have the privilege every day to get to know the people and places that make this Sweet Home Chicagoland. Hey there, welcome to Sweet Home Chicagoland. I'm Chris Grano with Keller Williams here in the Chicagoland area. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. This is the podcast where we celebrate the people and places that make the Chicago suburbs an amazing place to live. So I'm super excited about today's guest. I'd like to welcome Dr. Kori Feldman, who is the founder and the medical director of Vitality Family Health and Wellness Partners in Oak Brook. Dr. Feldman, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my full disclosure, my family has been patients at Dr. Feldman's practice for several years now. So we've got the little ones. My newest little baby has visited several times in the last few weeks. And we've loved our time at the practice. And so I wanted to, get a little bit about your background, Dr. Feldman, and share with our guests about what makes the practice unique. So tell me first, I like to ask all of our guests this when we get started, is what's your connection to Chicagoland area? Are you from here? Did you move here? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm born and raised here in the western suburbs of Chicago. So I actually grew up in Oak Brook. And I did go away for college for a couple of years to Arizona, and then I came back and went to med school in Chicago. I lived downtown, and now I'm back in the suburbs, and I have my practice here in Oak Brook. So I'm a big fan of Chicago, and especially the western suburbs.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's a really, and for those who are from Chicago, they know that we kind of have our little pockets, and I grew up in the western suburbs as well, so I'm a longtime resident, and it's a special part of the city and of the area. So when you started your practice, you were in LaGrange. Was it technically LaGrange, right?
Yep, LaGrange.
And then made the move to Oak Brook. And so you've been at this current location for, is it about 3 years now?
Almost 3 years, yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
And we were 10 years at the other one.
Wow. Okay. So what did the move afford you to do? You have a little bit more space, a little bit better location, or?
Yes. Yes. More space, nicer space, more ability to do the things that we wanted to do as we were growing, and closer to home, and still really great access to the city and all the different communities that we actually serve, which because we're unique, and we'll get into how we are, we serve people not just really close, but further away too. So we wanted to be really accessible for further away.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's super easy. Just hop right off the highway and you guys are right there. So
yep.
That's wonderful. Okay. So tell me a little bit. I'm always curious about how people got into the field that they got into. What made you decide to go into medicine as a career?
So initially I was kind of deciding when I was in college, do I go medicine or business? Those were the two areas, for whatever reason, that I was kind of thinking about. My dad's a big business guy, so I was always kind of thinking about that. But honestly, the classes, thought of doing that for 4 years kind of seemed boring to me. And I really like science and the human body. And so I decided to pursue medicine. But the funny thing is, then I ended up opening my own practice and really doing the business thing too. And so I do like both of them, but it's about marrying the two.
That's funny. I think anybody who starts their own business, whatever the field is, sometime at some point has to realize, wow, not only am I doing what I practice, but then I'm a marketer now. I am, some ways I'm an accountant, and obviously the goal is to hire those positions out, or to freelance them out or something. But yeah, it's tough to marry that. So it's really neat that you sort of had an interest in it to begin with. So tell me a little bit about the practice. We've already mentioned it a couple times that it's a really unique practice, and you focus on what you call integrative and functional medicine. So tell me about that hybrid model. What makes it different from just any other doctor in the Chicagoland area?
Yeah. So when I came out of residency, I, as I said, was really thinking about wanting to have my own practice so I could help people more effectively. I always thought about that. And so within a year after residency, I opened my clinic in the end of 2008 in LaGrange. It was insurance-based, family medicine. And I like to think of it, it was called Integrative Family Health Associates. So I wanted to be more integrative and more natural. I had supplements and was really helping people kind of in this more natural way, kind of combining conventional care with more natural options. But I am a family medicine MD, so that's kind of where I was rooted in what I was really doing. And I was really excited. I was spending up to 90 minutes with my patients in insurance, which is insane. And I was giving them all these handouts and like really teaching them how to take better care of themselves. And I was so excited. And people would get overwhelmed and they'd be like, oh my gosh, so much information. And then they'd leave and come back a couple months or a year later, nothing changed. Like they're frustrated, we're frustrated, nothing's happening. And I was really surprised. I thought I just needed more time with my patients. Like, I don't understand. I have more time. I'm doing insurance. Like, what's the problem? And it was just getting a little, it was starting to get frustrating. And then a little over a year after I opened my practice, a personal tragedy happened. And my sister, I received a phone call that my sister, April 10th, 2010, was suddenly and unexpectedly killed by her soon-to-be ex-husband the night before. And it was, I mean, we're almost 11 years ago now. And as you can imagine, this just shook me to my core. And it really made me reevaluate, what was important, what kind of an impact did I really want to have, how much more effective did I want to be, like helping my patients if I was in this role. And frankly, how much time did I really have to do the things that mattered? And so I started to look into functional medicine, which is getting to the root cause. Like, why are we having these problems instead of just giving people a pill for an ill? It made so much more sense to me. And so I kept learning more and more and getting more training and information about it. And then in 2015, I started my wellness practice and wellness program with this functional medicine approach. And it just, again, made so much more sense. And when I started running some of my primary care patients through this program, I found they were dramatically more successful at reaching their health goals. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, here I am like trying to do it over here in the conventional model. And it's just not happening. And so because people are getting so much more effective results and sustainable results, I started really building that side of my practice. Now I'm a family medicine doctor though. So I really wanted to keep my primary care practice because frankly, there's still, after all this time, almost 13 years, there's still nobody really practicing like we were practicing in this more natural way. But insurance was becoming harder and harder to deal with. And I was crazy and actually did my own billing the whole time, which is kind of insane.
Right.
So I was really, really painfully aware of how bad the reimbursements were getting. And like, it was just really, really hard to keep doing that. And so as I started building my wellness practice, I was trying to figure out how can I sustain this like integrative or even more functional primary care practice. And so in 2018, I shifted out of insurance and created what's called a direct primary care membership practice. And so that means like you pay a monthly fee, kind of like a gym membership, and then you get access to certain services. And we just cut insurance out of it because frankly, they were just limiting everything and making it really hard. And people were still in this mindset that I can only, wait till I'm broken and then sit in front of the doctor and wait for the doctor to fix me. And it was just this really broken way of operating that was just not helping anybody. And so it was really exciting to be able to flip into a much more effective approach where we cut the middlemen out and can really help people more effectively, which, obviously you've been able to understand and value yourself, as you guys chose to stay with us. And it's just been a way more rewarding and exciting way to practice and help people. So we basically have this spectrum of services and care to really help people wherever they are, right? Whether they're really sick or they have stuff going on and they really just want to turn things around like sustainably and effectively, or they're already kind of there and they just, want a place with like-minded primary care support that is going to be still like more natural minded and stuff, but ultimately geared towards always figuring out and thinking about why and not just masking symptoms.
So, that I'm passionate about the topic as well. Our family is, and, my wife's family's background and everything. But what I always found intriguing, and, when we were searching out a doctor with this mindset, for our family, and we found your practice, we were sort of astonished that in a major city like Chicago, a modern city with, lots of educated people, that there were not choices, and we felt incredibly, lucky to find you and to be able to get in. But I don't know, do you have any thoughts on why more MDs don't follow that path?
To be honest, I think it's a lot of fear. You've probably heard the adage that doctors are terrible at business. I remember hearing that when I was going through medical school, and even though I was interested in business, like, that fear was in me too. Like, you can't be successful on your own. You need to work for the hospital or the big system, and basically be a factory worker. Seeing 30 people a day, 30 patients a day, and nobody's really caring about and looking out for your mental well-being and your own health, right? Like, you're just this kind of cog in the wheel in the machine. And so I think part of it is fear. And honestly, I probably would still be in the conventional system had I not had that tragedy happen to me so early in my whole journey. I think about that. Like, I obviously wish that I could have her back, but losing her so suddenly and unexpectedly like that, it shifted me in such a profound way that just made me do things despite fear, right? Like, live
Right.
the way that I truly believed in, the most authentic way that I believed, because frankly, I don't know how much time I have. And I want to honestly do things in honor of my sister who can't do the things that matter to her now anyways. And so I do think there's just a lot of it is belief and limiting mindsets that are just pervasive in the conventional medical scene.
For sure. Well, I mean, obviously, it's a great testament to your sister, and you're continuing to build a legacy, in her name, which is astonishing and amazing. And I'm curious too, not only, the model that you follow where it's more care-based and taking the extra time, why, I'm just curious if you have thoughts on why in Western medicine we have sort of a put a Band-Aid on it, pop an aspirin type of approach, rather than, as you mentioned, what's the root of the problem. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I've thought about this a lot. And there's a lot of reasons. I mean, our system in general is really a sick care system, and it's really built that way, and the incentives are set up that way. And one of the biggest reasons that it maintains this whole philosophy and mindset is insurance. Because, insurance, it's there. It's literally set up like car insurance. Like, we all know when we use our car insurance, does anybody ever want to use car insurance? No,
right.
because that means that your car is broken. Nobody
Right.
wants a broken car. And yet our health insurance was literally set up the same way. And so you literally use it when you're broken. So realistically, you shouldn't want to use your insurance because that means you're broken, right? Like, your car insurance doesn't pay for, oil changes and windshield wiper changes and, fluids
Right.
and maintenance. We know that and we accept that, but we've never been taught that's how our health insurance really is. And so when you really think about the things that health insurance values and pays for, it pays for hospitalizations, which are important, pays for like surgeries, again, if they're indicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just like ancillary elective stuff, but things that you need.
Right.
It pays for some drugs, some lab work, and some doctor's visits. And when you really think about those things, like when insurance pays for those things, the doctor's visits and the lab work, for example, are generally geared around prescribing what? Medication.
Medication. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And if things are really bad, maybe a surgery.
Right.
And so I always ask people, I do these webinars on my wellness side of the practice, literally having this conversation, because it is really hard for people to think about this if they've never heard it this way. And it makes a lot of sense when we talk about it like this, but like, the medications and the surgeries that the insurance generally pays for, are they usually fixing the underlying problems that are setting people up for health issues, or are they mainly just masking symptoms?
Right.
And for the most part, they're just masking symptoms. Now, sometimes they do fix problems. And I always say, like, this system is fabulous for acute care medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm bleeding to death and I need more blood, or I lost a limb and I need it reattached, or I have COVID really bad and you need to be in the hospital. Like that's where the system shines. That's where we need it. But when it comes to chronic diseases and frustrating long-term symptoms, the system is woefully broken and lacking and not helping people in this effective enough way. So then we understand our insurance then values and pays for things that mask symptoms. So if we all agree and understand that truly is what's going on, then we have a choice to make. We say, well, I can sit back, and wait for crisis to happen and only do things then my insurance will pay for, and then react when that happens. Or do you think your health is your most important and valuable asset? I mean, can we literally do anything if we don't have our health?
Right.
No.
No.
And we have to choose and understand that we need to invest in it and invest in our health and do what we need to do to get on track. Now, here's the thing. We're going to pay for it. We are all paying for it. Do you know where most people pay for their health?
The end. Yeah.
The end of life in this horrible, futile attempt to maintain horrible quality of life that's been going on for most people for decades.
Right.
Like, to me, that is not acceptable. We're going to pay for it somewhere. So I would much rather invest in myself now and stay healthy and get on this path to actually getting healthier as I age and really be healthy as long as possible than to just spin out and go in this natural decline, which is where most people are heading. And then, pay for it at the end. It makes sense when we talk about like this, but nobody talks about it like this. So I love having these discussions.
This particular topic, and there are other topics that I think you could apply to this logic as well. But one thing I notice happening a lot in our society is we don't want people to feel bad about choices, and because it's hard, right? And life is complex, and not everybody has the same education, and not everybody has the same head start that some people have, and that's all a reality. And to ignore that is ignorant. But at the same time, I think a lot of people don't realize how much of their life they actually do have control over, and that is in so many different arenas, whether it's health or finances or family. The choices we make, I think personally, are the bulk of what happens to us. And so you're right. The model that is built and unfortunately is fed to people is there's not a whole lot you can do about your health, and you just have to sort of react to it. And we name everything like a disease, so we say heart disease or whatever. And certainly I'm sure you can speak to it way better than I can, that there are definitely genetic factors for these things, right? But how we eat and how we exercise plays in a big part. Would you agree?
Absolutely. In fact, I love talking about this point because there is a big misperception out there, misconception that your genes really dictate so much and that there's nothing you can do. And here's the thing, your genes literally only dictate about 5% of your health. And it's the environment you put your genes into that makes a much bigger impact. So meaning just what you said, food, exercise, stress relief, sleep, toxin exposure, all those things matter. And I was my own personal example of this. So I actually, for example, have very bad genes when it comes to heart disease. Like I have one from each side of my parents, and it's really bad, but I have very low cholesterol and low inflammation markers, where other people in my family are on statins and have all this stuff going on. And they're like, my genes. I'm like, I have those genes, but I don't see that because I put my bad genes in a good environment. So the more I prove that to myself, the more I believe, there's so much more that we have control over and that we can do to really turn things around. And that's why I love what I do.
I love that phrase, put my bad genes in a good environment. It really puts it into the context. And so for folks who have joined your practice, I know you focus on getting to the root of those causes. Do you find when people adhere to those, practices and techniques and good health, on their end of things, are they able to get off of the drugs that they maybe have been on for a long time?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's awesome because nobody has a deficiency in statins.
Yes,
or
exactly.
Prozac or something, right? Like that's that's not the real problem, right? And
Right.
I'm not against medicine, right? Like, I'm a family medicine MD. There's definitely situations that you need to take it to help get you to this place. Like, you cannot just stop your medicines and do nothing. Like,
Right.
you definitely have to set the stage and turn things around. What I do find is that our wellness practice is dramatically more effective when people are ready and serious to really learn what I call the skills of being healthy, because they are skills that you can learn at any point, and then you build on them moving forward, right? So you may not be perfect at them, but you understand, and because you understand, you choose. You're not just following Dr. Feldman's protocol or Dr. anybody's protocol. You're actually choosing because you truly understand what those things do to your body, how they affect your symptoms and the things you come in with. And then my primary care side is effective at helping people better than a conventional primary care practice, but it is still limiting because it's still set up in a primary care, setup, meaning like you still kind of have visits with providers, and yes, we have supplements, and yes, we have labs, and we have access to a detox kit, but it's kind of more piecemeal of what we do in our wellness program. And so what we find is it's a nice place for people that aren't quite ready for wellness, but do want more like-minded support. Or when people are done with a program, if they live nearby, we have a place for them to go, so then they can, stay with like-minded primary care. And a lot of families like you come in that are young and healthy and really just want like vaccine friendly support, is what we call it. We are not anti-vaccine. We have families that don't do vaccines, but what we are all about is educating people, giving them all the information, and helping them make decisions about what works best for their families and their situations. And so it's a really empowering way to practice, because even now, right, in the COVID days and stuff, like, everybody's kind of asking about even in those vaccines too. And it's like, we don't have a formal, stance in that. We just want you to get the information as much as possible and figure out, what makes the most sense for you guys. And so then you make decisions, and then we support you with whatever those decisions are, because we know you're well educated about them, and you're making informed decisions. You're not just like blindly doing it out of emotion, or not knowing, or even like the wrong information.
Right. Well, that's the last thing you said is what I was going to pick up on is people are going to educate themselves one way or another. And so where are they getting the information from? And or they may just, accept someone saying something to them and never really sort of digest it for themselves. And again, you can talk about that in almost any arena of life. If you're handing your money over to somebody to manage and you're not understanding what's going on, there's a good chance that that's not going to end up really well, And same thing with your health. Why would you hand your health over to someone else rather than have someone educate you, empower you, and be a partner with you through that process? So we love that about your practice. And I think when people hear that, they should get excited, like, oh wow, I can actually understand this, and it's not some mystical, magic, foggy thing, right? Like, health isn't like up in space, up in the clouds. It's reality. It's
their skills.
Yes.
Just like anything else in life. And that's why I call it that. I think about what we do in terms of teaching people the skills of being healthy, because I truly do believe they're skills, and that you can get better and better at them over time. And frankly, a lot of the doctors themselves are struggling with their own health, in the same way that their patients are, right? And they're taking the medicines and having the trouble with their weight and things like that. And so I don't knock them. I am one of them in terms of my training. But part of my mission is to help more doctors figure this out too, because the more doctors can actually choose better for themselves and actually take better care of themselves. And that actually speaks to what we were talking about earlier with business models. And in fact, part of what I do on the side now is I coach other doctors at really like creating the practice and therefore the life of their dreams. Because like, as doctors, it's not helpful just to be going through the motions and just surviving. Like, for us to be thriving and be able to be truly impactful and inspiring for our patients, we need to figure this out for ourselves too. And so I love what I do so much more now. And again, I'm grateful that I had, this terrible tragedy happen to me, that obviously I don't want that to have happened, but that it really pushed me outside of my comfort zone to do things I would have never probably been confident or strong enough to do, maybe until I was a lot older. And, it's just, again, how much time do you have to do what matters?
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, you can hear the passion come through when you speak about it too. So I think that's exciting, for a patient who's listening, or somebody out there who's looking for a different type of care, looking to turn things around. I mean, if you feel like somebody is actually fighting for you, like I said, as a partner, I mean, I think that's exciting.
Yeah,
So
and helping us too, real quick, just realize
yeah,
like the doctor can't fix you. You may want a doctor to fix you. You're trying, you're searching, you're doctor shopping. But what I've learned is we really can't fix anybody unless you're in the acute care situation, right? But
right.
other than that, the doctor can only fix themselves. All we can do is educate and empower you to fix yourself. So when we start to really understand that and embrace our part in this as patients, it's much more effective all around. And that's where you see success in all ends.
Yeah. No, and we were talking offline, before we started recording the podcast, about, motivation, and that has to come from within, or within, your environment, maybe family. In my business, we call that the big why. Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to succeed in any given area of life? And it's got to be a pretty good reason to make the sacrifices, because there are sacrifices to achieve anything, including good health, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a couple things, that, I'm sure you see lots of different patients, you see lots of different situations, and you've seen, multi facets of the medicine community, of what you do. So what are maybe 3 or 4 just common health difficulties that you see, like, over and over and over again at your practice?
So we have like the two sides. So I always kind of think hybrid. My brain's kind of split like that. So like on the wellness side of the practice, I would say, we're adults. We're 20 somethings into 90-year-olds, kind of the whole spectrum, people pretty healthy, trying to get to the next level, and higher performance, all the way to people who are really sick and have a lot of stuff going on. Where my heart really sings, and who I love to serve is, number one, I would say, is actually women like my sister, honestly.
Mm,
The truth is, she was really deeply struggling with anxiety and depression and
mm,
low, self-esteem. And the sad thing is, she was really turning things around and really starting to get her life on a better track. And she was divorcing and taking better care of herself and really making better decisions. So, her transformation was cut short. And so I love really helping women, especially who just want to stop surviving and really want to choose to thrive and get on this better path for themselves, whether they're young in their 20s, which we've been seeing a lot more of lately. People who, women that are trying to get through college and just having trouble getting themselves going so they can have that life that they want, all the way to people who maybe have made decisions along the way that got themselves to a place where they're just not happy and
mm.
they're just not thriving and they're just not feeling like their best selves. And so that's a huge demographic I really love to serve. And then, but we do see men, we see couples, we're kind of all over the map with that. There's a lot of hormone imbalances and weight challenges of people on that side of the practice, because those are symptoms that are very frustrating and drive people to us. But like you spoke to before, it's really about why. Like, why is it important for you to lose the weight
Yeah.
and feel better and get off meds and things like that? Because if they're just focused on the scale or, getting off medicine or whatever, like, great, but why?
Yeah.
Well, because it will make me feel better, because I'll have a better relationship with my partner, because I'll be more physically active and enjoy my retirement, or, those types of things. So I talk
Yeah.
about in terms of a destination.
Right.
So those are who I love to serve on that side. On the primary care side, I love families like yours, young, healthy, motivated, just interested in learning more and just incorporating, more knowledge into how you guys can bring up your kids in the healthiest way possible and really live your best lives as a family. And I love empowering the families to then be able to, again, make informed decisions about their health, whether it's vaccines or whether or not to do medicines or, anything along the whole spectrum of medicine.
So you've mentioned a few times, or at least I sort of heard you talk about, because again, we're talking about whole wellness here, and you've mentioned what sounds to me like mental health as well. And so I know that you're not a psychiatrist, but I'm curious. I'm sure you see it, and I'm sure you treat it in different ways. What are some of the ways that the approach that you take can aid in helping folks with mental health as well?
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because our immediate thought is you need to be like a psychiatrist or a counselor. And that's true when we're talking about really serious mental health issues, psychosis and things like that.
Hmm.
But when we're talking about depression, anxiety, you know, low self-esteem and sort of even like OCD and things like that, where you're just, you know, kind of like overly focused on certain things, the more and more research is showing that gut and GI health is a huge part of that. Like your brain and your gut are super tied together. So to me, as a functional doctor, it's really important to be able to help people see the connection. Listen, it's again not just a deficiency in Xanax, right? Like
Right.
that's not the answer. But the idea is to help you understand how maybe poor gut health, inflammation, hormone imbalances are driving a lot of these symptoms. And you know, where does the low self-esteem and anxiety and depression come from? Well, some of it is from things that you're carrying from, you know, before, like, you know, childhood and things that have happened to you in the past. But a lot of times we're just carrying around a lot of limiting beliefs and a lot of trauma, you know, that is just untapped and untouched, and just, you know, it's just a bigger burden that we carry around. So like, the more I do this, and I've been, you know, practicing medicine since 2007, you know, less becomes more in that sense. Like, and mental health and foundational thinking and beliefs and you know, like your regimens that you take care of the way that you take care of yourself on a daily basis become more and more important. And so, yeah, we focus on food, you know, diet, food, and exercise and toxin exposure and stuff. But the mental health piece is so big that, like, in my wellness programs especially, we spend a lot of time really trying to help people identify like what areas or habits in particular are really driving a lot of these problems, and how can you start to shift just one at a time, right? Let's be realistic, and start to really understand where that's coming from and how you can really like reprogram your brain in some ways, right? Like my husband's a computer guy, so I always like the computer analogies and stuff, because it's like, you know, we're running this old hardware from childhood and stuff. Like it's just slow and it's not updating well, and like it's not working. And so really understanding like how you're being limited like that, and really upgrading your mindset and the way that you think and believe, and really what you think is possible and capable for yourself, is how you really get long-term resolution. Because you can eat a certain way and you can exercise like crazy and still have a lot of trouble, and that's what we see a
Mm.
lot of. And
Yeah.
so it's bigger. Those are important, but it's so much bigger than that. And so this mental health piece has become a big thing for me. And you know, I do realize it stems partly from my sister, but also just from so many of my patients that we find this is a root cause issue for so many challenges that people are dealing with in terms of their health.
You know, I've been amazed how much just I've learned just as a, you know, a layperson, so to speak, about health over the last 5, 10, 20 years. And sometimes I'll have conversations with friends and family, and we'll talk about this type of thing, these types of approaches. And it's totally new to them. They've never heard of anything like this. Do you find that a lot of the people that you work with, this is just absolutely like sort of radical thinking?
Oh, totally. I have to be careful, right? Because it's disrupting a paradigm of thinking that is um, not open
Mm.
to growing and adapting and getting better, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I'm grateful to that system, right? Because I got trained in it and I have that in the background, and always feel really good about helping people because I have that training in my background. But
Yeah.
most of what I do nowadays is I don't use a lot of that training. Most of what I use is my functional medicine training and integrative approach. And again, focusing more on these foundational habits and behaviors as really affecting long-term change in health. And it's again, it's all about fear, right? And when you start to really like poke the bear in people, and like really challenge, you know, some of their deep-seated beliefs that they've had for a long time, and they know they're miserable. For example, with other doctors, they know they're miserable. Like I'll go to I still keep my privileges on staff at the hospital because honestly, just for marketing. I don't do anything at the hospital, but like, why
Yeah.
not? I've had it this whole time. I'll just keep them, but I don't round or anything.
Sure.
But so I have to go to the hospital, you know, for, you know, annually to get my, you know, my meeting in to keep the privileges going. And it's always so depressing.
Mm.
Because I feel like I'm coming in like this sunshine and like so happy and excited about what I do, and like so many doctors just seem so beat down and so miserable and burned out, and I just want to rescue them. Like I just want to like really help them understand there's a better way, but they oftentimes do feel really stuck, because they have a nice cushy salary, and they don't know how to do business, right? They've never been taught how to do that. We've all been told that we're not good at it, and they really don't see a way out.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I think is shifting. It is, more and more doctors are waking up and becoming more aware of their options, just like patients. But it's slow, just like anything else. But I just try to stay positive and open. I try not to like push myself and my thoughts and stuff on people that aren't ready for it. But I just like to let it be known, hey, there's a better way. And I, at this point, if you ask me if I ever want to retire, no. Like I don't want to kill myself, right? And kill myself working until I die. But I do love the idea of doing what I do until I can't, which hopefully would be like I'm dying. And it's quick. It's not slow. It's going to be quick at the end. Because yeah, when you're on purpose, you don't feel like you're working. You're really serving people and contributing in a way that's meaningful and significant, and it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I understand how you feel. I feel the same way, in my career, and it's neat to hear someone who's not, like you said, there's great freedom in where you're at because you're not locked into a certain way. And again, that I hope people hear that and feel excited about about having somebody like that partner with them. So I wanted to ask you, kind of before we wrap up, there's a lot, I mean, there's so many topics we could cover and so many angles of health, but I think the biggest thing that we all probably focus on in our culture for a lot of good reasons and maybe not some good reasons is the food that we eat. And so, there's a lot of thoughts, and it's all changed over the years. I mean, like, from low fat diets to low carb diets and everything in between. But if somebody is just listening to this or watching this for the very first time, and they're really just kind of feeling stuck, and they want to make just simple little changes specifically to their diet to start feeling better, what are just some basic things that would benefit everyone?
Yeah, it's not about a diet. It's about being clean. And
Okay.
that's something that when I first started my practice years ago, I told everybody to eat the same way. And some people did really well and some people didn't. And I didn't understand. I thought this is the perfect diet, right? And like,
Okay.
it just didn't make sense. And what I learned was the people that were doing really well were eating as clean as possible. And so that's one of the things that we do in both sides of our practice is really teach people what clean, healthy food really is and how do you identify it.
Okay.
It sounds really simple, but the food industry does not want us to eat this way because frankly, they don't make a lot of money, right? When we eat healthy food, like it's the processed stuff that's going to, be all marketed. And that's where all the big food, big pharma, drug companies and agriculture are making the most money.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about really educating yourself about like what clean, healthy food is. And then, really figuring out then like, well, when you're eating clean, then how do I feel when I eat like animal proteins or no animal proteins or grains or no grains or keto or paleo or, all the million different diets out there? Because frankly, it's not a one size fits all. That's what we found.
Okay.
And you're not going to be perfect. Like I'm not perfect. Nobody is. But over time, it gets easier and easier to eat to feel good if you truly understand what clean, healthy food is. And frankly, I want more people to do that because I love eating out. And, the restaurants will cater to us if we go.
Yeah.
And so I encourage more people to go out there and demand clean food. So that's number one.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I'm right on board with you, but I think there's still great misconception because we're just bombarded with quick fixes and everybody has an opinion about that. So like you said, it sounds simple, and in one way it kind of is, but but
some people think too, like because it says organic or natural on the label, it must be healthy.
Right.
And more often than not, now that's not true.
Organic cheesecake, right?
Right. I always say like, organic gummy bears, right?
Right.
I mean, they're organic.
That's so funny. Well, thank you. Like I said, we could go on and on and on. What if we've not covered anything that you want to get out there to folks who are listening? Is there anything that we missed that you'd like to talk about, mention?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is like, if there's any simple steps that you can take to start getting yourself on a better track, I would find a doctor or practitioner that you align with and that really portrays and believes in your philosophy of life and that you feel comfortable with, because you can work with those people. When you're working with a doctor or practitioner that is not on board on the same boat as you, and just not on the same page, and you feel like you're unheard, or they're just like not listening, that can really be damaging on all levels. So I would encourage you, if you don't have someone like that in your life right now, to try to find somebody that you can work with to help you get your health on track. Because of course, if you don't have your health, you don't really have anything.
Absolutely. We are going to give all of the links below. So if you're listening to this, you can check out the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on one of the podcast platforms. But really quickly, let our listeners and viewers know, what is the best way to get a hold of you if they want to learn more about your practice?
Yep. So we have two different websites. You can go to our www.vitalityfamilyhealth.com. That's our primary care site. And then we have www.vitalitywellnesspartners.com. That's our wellness program site. We're in the same office. We have the same team. I run both of them, but we do have two different sites to make it a little bit clearer. And then you can reach out to us. There's all our contact details on there. There's videos. There's all kinds of information so you can learn more about us. We also have a free Facebook group that we are encouraging anybody that might be interested in anything that we talked about to go ahead and join, just so you can get more like-minded support and resources and help, and really get to know us better to see if we could help you on your health journey.
Yeah, I was going to plug the Facebook group if you didn't. It's a great resource for people. There's always videos and articles and things like that to help, answer questions or stoke ideas. So definitely, Dr. Feldman, thank you so much for your time. We're looking forward to hopefully catching up with you again. And for anybody, again, who has questions or just feels like they're ready to take their next step in health, I would highly recommend and encourage you get a hold of Dr. Feldman and everyone at Vitality Family Health. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
You too.